Phil, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. How are you all?
We are splendid, Phil, and yourself.
I feel inadequate today. I hear the best-selling author, and then I got to hear Bill Stubblefield's stories from the Navy before I came on, and I was like, man, me coming on with market news over the weekend just isn't adequate enough. But what a gift that listening to some of those stories was for myself and all the listeners. I'm sure appreciate it.
Before you go very much farther, Phil, Rob said exactly the same thing. Said Phil's going to be very inadequate when he comes on. so you and Rob on the same path now.
But in all fairness, that was before the show started.
That's before the show started. Exactly right.
That was a good one, Bill. Bill was laying in the weeds on that one.
I completely agree.
Man.
Wholeheartedly.
Bill dropping the mic and heading out the door. You got me good on that one, Mr. Stubblefield. That was good.
Well, we're talking about rejections earlier, Rob. I thought I was going to be probably fired before the morning's over, so I might as well get my blow in and leave.
You're going to be walking tall today. You just totally torched me on that one. That was creative. I like that. Phil, what's your rejection story, dude?
I've got tons of rejection stories. I don't know that I want to. I don't know that I want to share them on air, but most of them come from Pete Urish and Jeff Castile and the coaching staff and Yogi Kinder and my football coaches. I got rejected quite a bit, and it helped me grow. I think rejection is good, especially when you're young. So I got tons of rejection.
Yes, Mr. Gilstrap. Did you lose your volume?
I was trying to be subtle to ask you to raise the volume of my earphones a little bit.
Is this your first day on the show, showing subtlety?
I thought if I tapped the ears.
No, just say, Rob, turn up my volume.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Phil, Shepard had the graduation ceremony this weekend. Do you ever attend any of those?
I was there.
Yeah. Oh,
yes, I was there in attendance. My oldest daughter, Abigail, who was a guest of the show years ago, talking about the Hatfield-McCoy feud, which is a McMurrin scholar, and she graduated with all the highest honors. Super proud of Abigail and her accomplishments at Shepherd. Double major. She had 2 majors, and she will now move on to the real world, big girl job and such. But they did a really good job with graduation. I think it lasted like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, and it was. We got to bring her grandparents in, and Hoppy Kirchhofer was the speaker, and he did, I thought, an excellent job, a super job in the speaking. And Dr. Hendricks, it was a good day, great day.
And in the graduate group early in the morning, Dr. Peter Lodes was the commencement speaker. I thought Shepard hit a grand slam with his speakers this year, both very impressive individuals.
Yes, Hoppy Kirchhoff did a really good job. And little did I know that he actually attended Shepherd for a year, but he gave the graduates 6 pieces of, fairly quick too, 6 pieces of advice, all of which was good. And the glee on my in-laws, who have, I've always appreciated my in-laws and their stories. They also went to Shepherd, but number 2 on the list was talk to your grandparents and listen to your grandparents. And they grinned a great deal. But both of my daughters have always been close with their grandparents and more than willing to listen to their stories and ask questions about their upbringing. So it was cool. It was a good day.
That's excellent to hear. And I had one grandparent, my grandmother. She came off the boat from Sicily at the age of 24 in 1920. I still love to hear her stories. As is the rule, all the Sicilian males were already dead. You can probably fill in the blanks on that one. You're at the rest of the story there. But my grandmother was the only grandparent that I had, and she had great stories of the old country. Very, very detailed ones at times.
And we don't realize until later how much we miss those stories.
Yes, absolutely. And if you make sure if your grandparents are still alive, you spend some time with them and enjoy what they have to say, because they've lived a great life.
I'll take it a step further. I think that it's important for the older generation to proactively tell the stories, because kids don't know to ask. They don't know what they don't know. Yeah. And it's that eye roll of, oh God, Dad. But yeah, it's part of being parent, grandparent is to get that family lore out there.
On that, my greatest accomplishment, I think, was convincing my cousins, a couple of cousins, to help us write the stories of our our grandparents, the history of grandparents, not from the genealogical aspect, born at a certain time, but stories that we remembered as a child with our grandparents. And we included our parents and our own generation. So we have the book published, and going back 3 generations of actual stories. And the reason I really wanted to do this more than anything else, my grandfather was a very poor cotton farmer or a dirt farmer, no money at all. And in those days, and he come through the Depression. In those days, you borrowed from the country store, and you at the crop came in, you paid back the country store. This one year, in late summer, the country store burned down with all the records. My grandfather, no money, went up to the guy and said, "This is how much I owe you." He was the only person that did that. And again, the gentleman had no money, but this is a story that I felt needed to be told. And that was one of several stories, but a man of great honor.
Very nice. By the way, I recommend a great movie. I saw it over the weekend, Nonnas, Nonnas. That's an Italian word for grandmothers. Just saw it on Netflix over the weekend. It's a true story based on a restaurant in Staten Island, New York, where they got grandmothers to do the cooking, and it's very, very enjoyable movie. So if you're looking for something to watch on Netflix, that's a good place to start. Phil, speaking of a good place to start, we've got word of a U.S.-China trade deal. Not all the details just yet, but at least a positive start to it. And markets have taken off this morning in pre-market trading here. We don't open up for another 48 minutes or so, but it looks pretty good so far.
It looks great so far, and then I would normally prepare for a good bit of this the night before, and this news wasn't out. We were positive because the headlines were that there were positive U.S.-China talks, but that was about it, and they expected up to a dozen more meetings before they came to any type of agreement, but it was in a positive direction, and our markets cheered that. And then I woke up this morning and I said, "Oh boy, what in the world?" And so, reading that, it looks like there was the outline of a deal anyway, and then another 90-day pause, and our markets have soared, and that's bringing about a lot. There's a lot in the news right now. Not only is it with the tariffs, but the tax plan that's supposed to be announced tomorrow. I think that could be a positive for the markets. I don't know what it entails other than the individual tax rates are supposed to stay the same, but the tax plan is supposed to be announced tomorrow. So there's a lot of good momentum coming off of, if we go all the way back to Liberation Day, which was just over a month ago. Most of our market performance has been good as the easing of tariffs have occurred, if we remember that chart just from a month ago. So all of those have eased, but it does bring some future headwinds, and I'm getting ready to bring up the Federal Reserve again, maybe collective eye roll from everyone that's listening. But the Federal Reserve now, does that encourage or discourage rate cuts, which is important to our markets? And before the announcement of the trade deal last night, the odds of a rate cut in July, I think it was 69%, and the minute that they made that announcement, it dropped to 40%. And there's already a lot of debate on what that will mean. So remember the two mandates from the Federal Reserve, employment or the overall economy, but employment and inflation. And while this could ease inflation or those future inflation concerns, it wouldn't necessarily ease inflation, but it wouldn't be as large of a concern as it was. But it could also boost the economy. So where would that leave the Federal Reserve? And right, so which mandate do they care about most? And based off of the odds of a rate cut in July, it looks like they care most about the inflation than the employment part of it. So there's a lot to absorb in this, but it is positive news, and we want good relations with China. All the teenagers out there that shop on Shein and Temu or whatever it is, they can kind of breathe a sigh of relief just for a moment. But overnight trading is huge. I mean, look at those numbers. That's not something you're used to waking up and seeing. That may be something, in the last month or so that, of course, we've had some really, really good days, but to look up and see a positive 4% on the NASDAQ and over 3% on the S&P is quite impressive.
And Bill Tesla is up 8% this morning.
That's good news, yes.
This day keeps getting better for you.
And Phil keeps saying, buy Tesla, buy Tesla.
Phil's got to say it correctly.
The Mag 7 has been some of the biggest boosts we've got. Amazon is up over 8% in overnight trading, and Apple is up 6.5%. NVIDIA is up 4.5%. Facebook or Meta now 6.2%, all in overnight trading, and those were the ones that were hit the hardest with the trade tensions with China. So they're of course they have the largest recovery right now. What has given back some? There are some parts of the market that's not doing as well. Pharmaceuticals aren't doing as well because there's supposed to be here in a few hours, I think, an announcement on a best country efforts for drug pricing, an executive order. So drug companies have given a little bit back on the thought that they may have to sell their drugs at a cheaper price. I don't know a lot of details on that, but I know that it is dragging pharmaceutical companies down in overnight trading.
Phil, what little we've heard about this agreement between China and the U.S. was that the U.S. would reduce their tariff from China to 30% or 30%, and then China would reduce theirs to 10%. Can we, as an economy absorb the 30% fairly easily?
Apparently, it looks like we can, and we've thought all along, and I still think this, that it is more about an uncertainty of how much the tariffs will be opposed to the tariffs existing altogether. So apparently as an economy that 30% is acceptable and maybe in a range just based off of overnight trading. So that's a very small sample size, but it's yet to be seen. Can we withstand that type of tariff? And it looks like that we can anyway, or the perception is that we can, but I still maintain that more so than what the tariffs are is a certainty. And I'm going to go back to Liberation Day and watching real-time market movements when Donald Trump started speaking after the market closed, and we've been talking about overnight trading. Well, the first thing, and my perception of his speech was it was going to be 10% across the board, and that was it. And it looked like the markets thought the same thing. So when that Liberation Day began and they first announced 10% across the board for everyone, our markets actually shot up a few percent, 2, 3, 4%, depending on which market you were looking at. And then out came the chart, and it completely changed course and went negative because of the uncertainty. And it was difficult to understand, 145% on this country and 50% on this country, and what is a non-tariff barrier, and what does that mean, and what can they do to lift that? And all those questions start to come about. And we went from one moment we were up 3% in the S&P, and the next moment we were down 4%, a 7% swing almost as soon as he brought that chart out. But so that left me with the impression that certainty is more important than what the actual meat of the numbers are. It's the certainty of what they would be. And I think, again, in overnight trading, it was more so because what I had seen last night was a positive momentum, but then an announcement of a 30% and 10%. So that certainty is what I think has caused our markets to do so well in overnight trading. Not so much that there's a deal in place, but there's a certainty, and we know, anyway, we think we know what it's going to be moving forward.
With this possible agreement with the U.S. and China, we are also seeing oil prices spiking, Phil, and I think oil is up nearly 4% itself this morning. And the 10-year Treasury as well is on the rise, too, back up into the 4.461% range. What's the connection there?
The connection with the yield is what we had just brought up. The thought that the Federal Reserve, remember we said those odds were close to 70% of a rate cut in July, and now that those odds have dipped significantly down to 40% or even below. So that's why Treasury yields are higher, because the thought is that the Federal Reserve will wait longer now to employ a rate cut. On the oil market, it is simply because we think this is good for our economy. So if it's good for the economy, spending and travel and supply chain and oil consumption would be higher. So there's the answer for both of those. And it is something that brings about future concerns with, of course, the rate cuts and how much will that impact our markets, or do our markets even care? Is it July or is it October? Do we even care? But do we then get into a period where the only thing going well with our economy of late was oil prices were lower, even though we may not see it at the gas pump as prevalent, But during the summer, $3 a gallon isn't that bad. During the May and June months, it's not that bad. And so that was one good thing that we had going, or perception was going well anyway, and that could change course, and it could start to go much, much higher. Do we start to see, and I'm really parlaying this out to late summer and projecting, but do we start to see $4 a gallon again, which would be a drag on the economy? So there is potential headwinds ahead, but in the moment, this is really good news.
So did you have something, John Gilstrap?
Well, no, I just I find a lot of this is so much political posturing with the tariffs, and I've said this from the very beginning, that I think people are missing the point. They've missed the point about the tariffs from the very beginning. There's this tendency to do static analysis with Trump when dynamic analysis is the only way to go because everything is a moving target. And we conflate the stock market with the economy, which is always a mistake. What's happening here?
Agreed.
On whatever it was, Thursday or Friday, when the UK deal was done, the headline is not the absolute value of the tariffs. It's that Ford can now affordably sell cars in the UK, if not specifically, then metaphorically. And if what happens at the end of this China deal, if all of a sudden Ford has a reliable market in China where it never did before, that's the big victory. It's not about the absolute value of the tariffs or about the movement of the Fed or anything else. It's really, this is a political challenge about the balance, it's about the trade balance and the ability of the United States to do business legitimately and without the burden of other countries' tariffs on what we do. That's how I see it anyway.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, and there's and I think that kind of mimics what I said just a moment ago. It wasn't as much that tariffs would exist, but how much will they be, and will that enable us to do business freely in other countries, and without the concern of we'd heard about the supply chains that were at a standstill just a few weeks ago, and that wasn't because people didn't want things. That was because companies didn't know how much it was going to cost to bring things here to there and the like. So therefore, I'm not going to do it until I have more clarity. And that clarity is, I think, been the most important thing that we've gotten over the weekend. Some clarity anyway.
So when you get a wild move like this, and these aren't that uncommon when you look at Trump's first term and what's been going on in the second term, because he's capable of creating a lot of momentum in either direction quickly with what he says and how he says it. Does this become computer-generated trading overnight, Phil, or are these actual people who are thinking, oh, okay, well, now's the time to make a move and put some money in these particular stocks or funds?
People start it, and then algorithms kind of exasperate it. So people start doing this, and we have to remember overnight trading. I don't want to dismiss the momentum that we have right now, but overnight trading is very light trading. So there's not a lot of trades, and one huge trade can make a big difference. And when I say a huge trade, I don't mean, Phil, Rob, or John, or Bill trading $5,000 or 5,000 shares of any given stock. I mean millions and billions of dollars of trades. But what happens is, especially in mutual funds that we hold in our 401ks, there's algorithm trading that does happen. Exchange-traded funds have algorithm trading. And what that could bring is for a difficult day tomorrow if we maintain this, because what will happen is eventually, if you may, just for an example, and this is, I don't know that this even exists, but for an example, if I hold Amazon inside my portfolio, I may have an algorithm that says, hey, if it jumps more than 5% on a given day at the close, then I must sell it. I don't care what's happened before that. I'm going to sell a 5 or 10% jump in that stock. So once the day closes, then I'm going to I'm going to automatically sell or trim. It's not going to completely sell out the position or trim the position. At the same time, you could have something that 200-day moving average for technical analysis anyway. For technical analysis, 200-day moving average is really important. If it breaks through that 200-day moving average, could be the exact opposite. If Amazon, because of this 5% jump, has broken through that 200-day moving average, I must now buy 1% more of that. And that's just algorithm trading. It doesn't matter what the headline. It doesn't matter what caused that to happen. we saw that we saw a light shine on that with the meme trades, if we recall, a couple of Januaries ago with GameStop, and I forget what the other one was, but GameStop was the big one. A lot of that was just algorithm trading in hedge funds. Algorithm trading happen in normal, everyday, kind of boring mutual funds as well. That happens there. It happens too. So it starts with humans, but it gets exasperated by the algorithms.
Go ahead, Bill.
Now, let me go back to a point that John asked a few minutes ago, and he may well be right. I'm pushing back a little bit, but John's more knowledgeable about this sector than I am. I mentioned that the tariffs was serving to kind of loosen up boundaries. The numbers that I've seen is that the U.S. is now more of a service generating company than hard, and that IG gross domestic product has actually fared very, 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 very well compared to other countries, even with the trade imbalances that have been parroted by the White House now. Certainly, Ford was mentioned, but yet Ford builds a product that's not very popular in Europe anyway, at least the F100.
It could be General Motors. It could be
well, okay, but my point
Magnavox.
is, are the tariffs really? Is there a trade imbalance or trade restriction to the point that we as a country are suffering?
Yeah, because I think China is at war with us, and we don't know it yet, and they have been, and we know that because they've said they are. It's part of their mission is to overwhelm our economy. We don't produce anything. So if we do, in the shot over the bow was COVID, that we don't produce the things we need to produce. If a balloon goes up to a hot war, now I'm being, what I do for a living, right? So our enemy produces the bulk of what we need to go to war with our enemy. So we need to bring hard production. We need to shift the economy away from just a service economy into more of a manufacturing economy so that we're able to protect ourselves. It's an evolution. It's going to take a decade or more.
And the CHIPS Act was a step in that direction.
I don't know the details of it has chips in it, and I kind of gloss over. I don't know.
John thought that was a snack foods act. Bill wasn't actually thinking about that.
Bring chocolate back to
semiconductors or anything to that effect, right? Phil, to circle back, congratulations on the graduation of your daughter from college. I lost track of time. It went by so quickly that this was her graduation year. So that's pretty awesome. Good for you guys.
Yeah, we're proud of her. She worked hard, and she said day one she was going to be a McMurrin Scholar, and I really, even though I went there and that was there when I went, I didn't even know what that was. And she got that taken care of last year, and with the highest of honors, she grabbed every single one of them, so we could not be any prouder of her. And then Ada's following in her footsteps, so hopefully she has the same successes.
She will be a freshman this upcoming year, correct?
Yep, we have one stepping out and another one stepping in.
8 straight years of Shepherd. That's good.
Yes, it's like my undergrad work.
8 good years of college down the drain.
That's a joke. I wasn't there that long. I promise.
Phil, how do we reach you for more information today, sir?
You can reach us at 304-263-4343 or stop by and set us with an appointment at 1270 Winchester Avenue right here in Martinsburg.
Thank you, Phil. Have a great day, sir.
Thank you, guys.
And congratulations once again to you and the family.